seen a lot more people starting to build a lot more radical stuff, and that this has been happening at a lot higher speed. And we all like to see it, it's great. But this also means that as communities like this and places like this become more successful in their building, there will be more resistance and different types of resistance to this success. And this means more need to defend the builders in the public policy arena around the world, because hostile or misguided policies of governments can put pressure on these projects. They can shut them down. They can also slow them down. And extreme examples, tornado cash guys are in jail. Less extreme examples, try using DeFi from certain countries. So this is the topic I want to cover. This is something that I have been working on with Atlas Network, on trying to see what does this coalition to defend building look like in the next few years. If this community and our partners around the world get it right, and if we're successful in this defense, we can, in the next few years, set the tone and set the narrative for the coming, maybe even decades. So it is an important thing. It's a very important thing, but there are challenges to be solved, and I think that it comes down to more collaboration between people who do policy and people who do building. And whatever building means, technology such as decentralized finance, or is it special jurisdictions, or longevity, and anything else. So, quick few points about me. I have a background in fundraising and strategy. Prior to what I'm working on, I've used my strategy and fundraising skills in both nonprofits and business. Before I started working on this, I had built a successful think tank in Serbia and a media outlet. And I also worked in business. I trained free market advocates around the world in multiple countries. And my interests are generally at the intersection of individual freedom and free markets, and then radical innovation that leads to human flourishing. I'm especially passionate about longevity, because I agree that if you solve aging, you just have a lot more time to deal with everything else. Atlas Network, on the other side, is an organization that is older than me, and it has been around for over 40 years now. And Atlas is a US-based foundation, a nonprofit that aims to remove obstacles to human flourishing. Atlas does that by supporting advocates of individual freedom and free markets around the world, individuals and organizations, by giving them training, networking, and funding opportunities. And currently, Atlas Network supports 560 groups from over 100 countries. And my program supports a subset of these groups that work on defending decentralized technology, innovation, and such, and charter cities. Yeah, so when we speak of this policy effort to defend builders, defend decentralization, there are several layers of this debate that you always encounter as you go. And the first one is basically, can we build our way to freedom? Can we build our way to prosperity? Or is policy relevant at all? And this question is often asked by technologists, by builders in that field. And on the other hand, I was actually very glad to hear the other day when Balaji had his podcast with Joe Lonsdale, they actually said, yes, we do need policy, and we do need a global partnership with other stakeholders to protect what we are doing. Because my answer to this dilemma has always been, we need both. Technology is indeed upstream of politics and policy, but also it is affected by it. So it's more like a loop than a dilemma. Also, there is no cannibalism here. People who work in, who are entrepreneurs, and people who lead policy efforts or fight for more freedom to innovate, to protect, technology, to protect privacy in the policy arena, they're not usually the same people. So there is no, you're not going to poach talent from one side or the other. A similar dilemma is the famous voice or exit dilemma. And people, think that, it is, it's not possible to fix anything from within, and therefore you have to build an exit. And that approach has been vindicated many times, and I agree with it, but it is only partially true, because the old systems that you want to leave are still very powerful, and they can slow you down, they can shut you down, and your effort to build an exit can be, without allies within that system, can be much harder. Also, these allies that work within the system can be useful for those who want to exit also if they are successful, because they can help you scale and replicate your model in other places later on. So again, it is to me a false dilemma. And again, this Satya or Satoshi, as Balaji says it, it's basically, those are different types of personalities that do these different things. A builder of exit will never be, even interested in working within the system, or they will try and get bored. But somebody who is interested in fixing the system might find building something new too, extreme or too radical. So it's complementary. It should be. And then the most striking problem that I encounter is actually the total disconnect, almost total disconnect between two groups of people who share the same philosophy. Both free market policy people and technologists of freedom builders believe in the same philosophy. They believe in the power of the individual, supremacy of individual liberty, free markets, of voluntary exchange. But they almost never collaborate. They almost never work together, and only sporadically it happens. And as a consequence, technologies get sometimes controlled by governments still, because we suddenly find how much I know that. Suddenly, we find that European Union can almost kill your privacy in 5 days' notice, like a few months ago, and there is people getting arrested for building for weapon code and things like that. So we have not been able, really, as a movement of people who believe in the same ideas, to prevent governments from doing this. And I think also the policy efforts suffer because of it, because they're not exposed to the entrepreneurial mindset of the builders. And if you have ever dealt with policy people, even though they can be very good and great, if they are sometimes, too deep into, their economic analysis, their, liaison with legislature, with their relationship with the media, but they kind of like, something different could provide a great nudge and make them more effective. And this is actually the problem I am trying to solve while building the project on decentralized technology data center. Kind of like colliding these two groups and facilitating collaboration between them and seeing what will come out of that. Will our coalition be bigger, more effective? Can we learn from each other? And how can we deploy that knowledge? So basically, this is how we did it. This is kind of like our story of past year and a half working on this. Basically, we have a huge pool of organizations, and my first goal was, okay, let's identify out of these 560, how many groups actually have projects defending technology and policy or innovation. And it turns out we have been able to find 25. Many other groups exist, but they work with property rights, criminal justice reform, and different things that are not necessarily tied to any sort of radical innovation. And after we identified them, we brought them together into the same room to just talk. And this was useful itself because they figured out they hear about each other's projects for the first time. And then we learned about their priorities. And just the fact that they talked produced a lot of collaboration, because it turned out that people making the case in the US Congress or in the European Parliament or in other places needed this international research, needed more information, needed more perspectives involved to improve their own advocacy. That was, of course, just the first step. And we started some other initiatives. We were able to fund the first projects. And we, in a short period, organized events on 4 continents, starting this conversation in the broader free market community. We had hundreds of people in these events. And of course, we awarded some first projects. And then I have a picture here from Cape Town last year. South Africa, Liberty Forum, of Atlas Network, and we got prominent Bitcoiners in our broader free market policy community in. Yeah. Oh, much better. So yeah, but the event I'm most excited about is something that we did in Mexico City last year, and we called it the Radical Innovation Summit. And this is the first, why I'm excited about it, that for the first time, we not only brought together like people from tech and people who are really working on interesting innovation. We have people who are working on public policy that is supposed to defend that, but we actually facilitated a co-creation and a collaborative process. And what we did was basically, the event was hosted by a very innovative university in Mexico City, started by Ricardo Salinas, one of the wealthiest people in Mexico, and also a prominent Bitcoiner. And what we did was we picked 6 promising projects from Atlas and Trust Partners, and the project leaders came to Mexico City. And on the other side, we brought together a brain trust of 35 tech builders, investors, policy professionals, very experienced academics, journalists, even software developers. And this brain trust worked with these project owners to help them hone their projects and improve them. In the evening, we organized a Shark Tank where they competed for funding with their projects. And 3 organizations, actually including startup societies, won grants, small grants, to start some of their new initiatives. Here's Nicholas, and here's Bitcoin Policy Institute right here, and the guy here is building on Cosmos. So it's a very interesting set of people, and everybody loved it. So I'm actually going to leave you with this information. We are doing it again in August in Mexico City, and if you would like to, if anything that I said in this presentation is interesting, first of all, I would like you to come talk to me and challenge what I say, or support what I say, or give me your perspective of how these links can be forged. You're welcome to join us in Mexico City, and there will be more information about that. And then if you do not want to talk to me in person, you can send me an email or a Telegram message and say whatever you need without any censorship there. So yeah, if there is time, I can take questions. If not, we can talk during the event. I'll be here also for the whole Vitalia, so feel free to reach out. Thank you.
Oh, 2 minutes. I was looking.
Hello. How do you think this will fulfill a different niche than the Startup Societies network, and what ways do you think they would work together or be different?
Yeah, I think it's about augmenting the coalition. I think it's about bringing in new people who have a lot of experience in talking to politicians, talking to legislators, talking to these different stakeholder groups that are more like in the mainstream kind of world. So it's building a bridge from like the inner, circles to slightly towards the outer circles over time in different countries around the world, and kind of becoming more resilient as you do that, right? So that's how I see it. It's not necessarily, it's basically just the next step. So connecting what we already have here with people who maybe don't know anything about this, but this is becoming relevant to them, right? So, and to millions of other people. And I think building that, so there are people I think who are positioned to cover that gap. And they work with the existing community, but reach out to new target groups.